Part 1 of the Aeneid. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Joseph Early, Falls Church, Virginia. The Aeneid, by Publius Virgilius Maro. Translated by John Dryden. Book 5, Games and a Conflagration, Part 1. Meantime the Trojan cuts his wat'ry way, Fix'd on his voyage through the curling sea. Then, casting back his eyes with dire amaze, Sees on the Punic shore the mounting blaze. The cause unknown, yet his presaging mind the fate of Dido from the fire divin'd. He knew the stormy souls of womankind, what secret springs their eager passions move, how capable of death for injur'd love. Dire auguries from thence the Trojans draw, till neither fires nor shining shores they saw. Now seas and skies their prospect only bound, An empty space above, a floating field around. But soon the heavens with shadows were o'erspread, A swelling cloud hung hov'ring o'er their head. Livid it look'd, the threat'ning of a storm; Then night and horror, ocean's face deform'd. The pilot, Palinurus, cried aloud, "What gusts of weather from that gath'ring cloud My thoughts presage! Ere yet the tempest roars, Stand to your tackle, mates, and stretch your oars; Contract your swelling sails, and luff to wind." The frighted crew perform'd the task assign'd. Then to his fearless chief, "Not Heav'n," said he, "Tho' Jove himself should promise Italy, Can stem the torrent of this raging sea. Mark how the shifting winds from west arise, And what collected night involves the skies. Nor can our shaken vessels live at sea, Much less against the tempest force their way. 'Tis fate diverts our course, and fate we must obey. Not far from hence, if I observ'd aright The southing of the stars and polar light, Sicilia lies, whose hospitable shores In safety we may reach with struggling oars." Aeneas then replied, "Too sure I find we strive in vain against the seas and wind. Now shift your sails. What place can please me more Than what you promise, the Sicilian shore, Whose hallow'd earth Anchises' bone contains, And where a prince of Trojan lineage reigns." The course resolv'd, before the western wind They scud amain, and make the port a sign. Meanwhile Acestes, from a lofty stand, Beheld the fleet descending on the land; And, not unmindful of his ancient race, Down from the cliff he ran with eager pace, And held the hero in a strict embrace. Of a rough Libyan bear the spoils he wore, And either hand a pointed jav'lin bore. His mother was a dame of Dardan blood, His sire Crinisus, a Sicilian flood. He welcomes his returning friends ashore, With plenteous country cates and homely store. Now, when the following morn had chas'd away The flying stars, and light restor'd the day, Aeneas call'd the Trojan troops around, And thus bespoke them from a rising ground: "Offspring of heav'n, divine Dardanian race, The sun revolving thro' th' ethereal space, The shining circle of the year has fill'd, Since first this isle my father's ashes held. And now the rising day renews the year, a day for ever sad, for ever dear. This would I celebrate with annual games, with gifts on altars piled, and holy flames, tho' banish'd to gay Tulia's barren sands, caught on the Grecian seas, or hostile lands. But since this happy storm our fleet has driven, not, as I deem, without the will of heav'n, upon these friendly shores and flow'ry plains, which hide Anchises and his blest remains, let us with joy perform his honours due, and pray for prosperous winds our voyage to renew. Pray that in towns and temples of our own the name of great Anchises may be known, and yearly games may spread the gods' renown. Our sports, Acestes, of the Trojan race, with royal gifts ordain'd is pleas'd to grace. 2 steers on ev'ry ship the king bestows; his gods and ours shall share your equal vows. Besides, if, 9 days hence, the rosy morn shall with unclouded light the skies adorn, that day with solemn sports I mean to grace. Light galleys on the seas shall run a wat'ry race. Some shall in swiftness for the gold contend, and others try the twanging bow to bend. The strong, with iron gauntlets arm'd, shall stand oppos'd in combat on the yellow sand. Let all be present at the games prepar'd, and joyful victors wait the just reward. But now assist the rites with garlands crown." He said, and first his brows with myrtle bound; Then Helymus by his example led, And old Acestes each adorn'd his head. Thus young Ascanius with a sprightly grace His temples tied, and all the Trojan race. Aeneas then advanc'd amidst the train, By thousands follow'd thro' the fruitful plain, To great Anchises' tomb; which when he found, He pour'd to Bacchus on the hallow'd ground 2 bowls of sparkling wine, of milk 2 more, And 2 from offer'd bulls of purple gore. With roses then the sepulchre he strow'd, And thus his father's ghost he spoke aloud: "Hail, O ye holy mourners, hail again! Paternal ashes, now review'd in vain. The gods permitted not that you with me Should reach the promis'd shores of Italy, Or Tiber's flood, what flood soe'er it be." Scarce had he finish'd, when, with speckled pride, A serpent from the tomb began to glide. His hugy bulk on 7 high volumes roll'd; Blue was his breadth of back, but streak'd with gold. Thus, riding on his curls, he seem'd to pass A rolling fire along, and singe the grass. More various colours thro' his body run, Than Iris with her bow imbibes the sun. Betwixt the rising altars and around, The sacred monster shot along the ground. With harmless play amidst the bowls he pass'd, And with his lolling tongue essay'd the taste. Thus, fed with holy food, the wondrous guest Within the hollow tomb retir'd to rest. The pious prince, surpris'd at what he view'd, The funeral honours with more zeal renew'd, Doubtful if this the place's genius were, Or guardian of his father's sepulchre. 2 sheep, according to the rites he slew, As many swine and steers of sable hue. New generous wine he from the goblets pour'd, And call'd his father's ghost from hell restor'd. The glad attendants in long order come, Off'ring their gifts at great Anchises' tomb. Some add more oxen, some divide the spoil, Some place the chargers on the grassy soil, Some blow the fire, and offer'd entrails broil. Now came the day desir'd; the skies were bright With rosy lustre of the rising light. The bord'ring people, rous'd by sounding fame Of Trojan feasts, and great Acestes' name, the crowded shore with acclamations fill, Part to behold, and part to prove their skill. And first the gifts in public view they place, Green laurel wreaths and palm, the victor's grace. Within the circle arms and tripods lie, Ingots of gold and silver heap'd on high, And vests embroider'd of the Tyrian dye. The trumpet's clangour then the feast proclaims, And all prepare for their appointed games. 4 galleys first with equal rowers bear, Advancing in the watery lists appear. The speedy dolphin, that outstrips the wind, Bore Mnestheus, author of the Mamaean kind. Gyas the vast Chimaera's bulk commands, Which rising like a tow'ring city stands. 3 Trojans tug at every lab'ring oar, 3 banks in 3 degrees the sailors bore. Beneath their sturdy strokes the billows roar. Sergestus, who began the Sergian race, In the great Centaur took the leading place. Cloanthus on the sea-green Scylla stood, From whom Cluentius draws his Trojan blood. Far in the sea, against the foaming shore, There stands a rock; the raging billows roar Above his head in storms; but when 'tis clear, Uncurl their ridgy backs, and at his foot appear. In peace below the gentle waters run; The cormorants above lie basking in the sun. On this the hero fix'd an oak in sight, The mark to guide the mariners aright. To bear with this, the seamen stretch their oars; Then round the rock they steer, and seek the former shores. The lots decide their place. Above the rest, each leader shining in his Tyrian vest, the common crew, with wreaths of poplar boughs, Their temples crown, and shade their sweaty brows. Besmear'd with oil, their naked shoulders shine; All take their seats, and wait the sounding sign. They grip their oars, and every panting breast Is rais'd by turns by hope, by turns with fear depress'd. The clangour of the trumpet gives the sign; At once they start, advancing in a line. With shouts the sailors rend the starry skies; Lash'd with their oars, the smoky billows rise. Sparkles the briny main, and the vex'd ocean fries. Exact in time, with equal strokes they row. At once the brushing oars and brazen prow Dash up the sandy waves, and ope the depths below. Not fiery coursers in a chariot race Invade the field with half so swift a pace; Nor the fierce driver with more fury lends The sounding lash, and ere the stroke descends, Low to the wheels his pliant body bends. The partial crowd their hopes and fears divide, And aid with eager shouts the favour'd side. Cries, murmurs, clamours, with a mixing sound, From woods to woods, from hills to hills rebound. Amidst the loud applauses of the shore, Gyas outstripp'd the rest, and sprung before. Cloanthus, better mann'd, pursued him fast, But his o'er-masted galley check'd his haste. The Centaur and the Dolphin brush'd the brine With equal oars, advancing in a line. And now the mighty Centaur seems to lead, And now the speedy Dolphin gets ahead. Now board to board the rival vessels row; The billows lave the skies, and ocean groans below. They reach the mark; proud Gyas and his train In triumph rode, the victors of the main. But, steering round, he charg'd his pilots stand More close to shore, and skim along the sand. Let others bear to sea. Menoetes heard, But secret shelves too cautiously he fear'd, And fearing sought the deep, and still aloof he steer'd. With louder cries the captain call'd again, "Bear to the rocky shore, and shun the main." He spoke, and speaking, at his stern he saw the bold Cloanthus near the shelvings draw. Betwixt the mark and him the Scylla stood, And in a closer compass plow'd the flood. He pass'd the mark, and wheeling got before. Gyas blasphem'd the gods, devotedly swore, Cried out for anger, and his hair he tore. Mindless of others' lives, so high was grown His rising rage, and careless of his own, The trembling dotard to the deck he drew, Then hoisted up, and overboard he threw. This done, he seiz'd the helm; his fellows cheer'd, Turn'd short upon the shelves, and madly steer'd. Hardly his head the plunging pilot rears, Clogg'd with his clothes, and cumber'd with his years. Now, dripping wet, he climbs the cliff with pain. The crowd, that saw him fall and float again, Shout from the distant shore, and loudly laugh To see his heaving breast disgorge the briny draught. The following Centaur and the Dolphin's crew Their vanish'd hopes of victory renew. While Gyas lags, they kindle in the race. To reach the mark, Sergestus takes the place. Mnestheus pursues, and while around they wind, Comes up, not half his galley's length behind. Then on the deck amidst his mates appear'd, And thus their drooping courage he cheer'd: "My friends, and Hector's followers heretofore, Exert your vigour, tug the lab'ring oar. Stretch to your strokes, my still unconquer'd crew, Whom from the flaming walls of Troy I drew. In this our common interest let me find, That strength of hand, that courage of the mind, As when you stemm'd the strong Malean flood, And o'er the Syrtes' broken billows row'd. I seek not now the foremost palm to gain, But that haughty wish is vain. Let those enjoy it whom the gods ordain. But, to be last, the lags of all the race, Redeem yourselves and me from that disgrace." Now, one and all, they lug amain; they row at the full stretch, and shake the brazen prow. The sea beneath them sinks; their lab'ring sides Are swell'd, and sweat runs guttering down in tides. Chance aids their daring with unhop'd success. Sergestus, eager with his beak to press Betwixt the rival galley and the rock, Shuts up th' unwieldy Centaur in the lock. The vessel struck, and with the dreadful shock Her oars she shiver'd, and her head she broke. The trembling rowers from their banks arise, And, anxious for themselves, renounce the prize. With iron poles they heave her off the shores, And gather from the sea their floating oars. The crew of Mnestheus, with elated minds, Urge their success, and call the willing winds; Then ply their oars, and cut their liquid way In larger compass on the roomy sea. As, when the dove her rocky hole forsakes, Rous'd in affright, her sounding rings she shakes. The cavern rings with clattering; out she flies, And leaves her callow care, and cleaves the skies. At first she flutters, but at length she springs To smoother flight, and shoots upon her wings. So Mnestheus in the Dolphin cuts the sea, And, flying with a force, that force assists his way. Sergestus in the Centaur soon he pass'd, Wedg'd in the rocky shoals, and sticking fast. In vain the victor he with cries implores, And practices to row with shatter'd oars. Then Mnestheus bears with Gyas, and outflies. The ship, without a pilot, yields the prize. Unvanquish'd Scylla now alone remains; Her he pursues, and all his vigour strains. Shouts from the fav'ring multitude arise. Applauding echo to the shouts replies. Shouts, wishes, and applause run rattling thro' the skies. These clamours with disdain the Scylla heard, much grudg'd the praise, but more the robb'd reward. Resolv'd to hold their own, they mend their pace, all obstinate to die or gain the race. Rais'd with success, the Dolphin swiftly ran, for they can conquer who believe they can. Both urge their oars, and fortune both supplies, and both perhaps had shar'd an equal prize, when to the seas Cloanthus holds his hands, and succour from the wat'ry powers demand. Gods of the liquid realms on which I row, if, given by you, the laurel bind my brow, assist to make me guilty of my vow. A snow-white bull shall on your shore be slain, his offer'd entrails cast into the main, and ruddy wine from golden goblets thrown your grateful gift and my return shall own. The choir of nymphs, and Phorcus from below, with virgin Panopia heard this vow. And old Portunus, with his breadth of hand, push'd on, and sped the galley to the land. Swift as a shaft, or winged wing, she flies, and darting to the port, obtains the prize. The herald summons all, and then proclaims Cloanthus conqueror of the naval games. The prince with laurel crowns the victor's head, and 3 fat steers are to his vessel led, the ship's reward, with generous wine beside, and sums of silver which the crew divide. The leaders are distinguish'd from the rest, the victor honour'd with a nobler vest, where gold and purple strive in equal rows, and needlework its happy cost bestows. There Ganymede is wrought with living art, chasing thro' Ida's groves the trembling hart. Breathless he seems, yet eager to pursue, when from aloft descends in open view the bird of Jove, and, sousing on his prey, with crooked talons bears the boy away. In vain, with lifted hands and gazing eyes, his gods behold him soaring thro' the skies, and dogs pursue his flight with imitated cry. Mnestheus the second victor was declar'd, and summon'd there the second prize he shared. A coat of mail, which brave Demoleus bore, more brave Aeneas from his shoulders tore, in single combat on the Trojan shore. This was ordained for Mnestheus to possess, in war for his defence, for ornament in peace. Rich was the gift, and glorious to behold, but yet so ponderous with its plates of gold, that scarce 2 servants could the weight sustain. Yet, loaded thus, Demoleus o'er the plain pursued, and lightly seiz'd the Trojan train. The third, succeeding to the last reward, 2 goodly bowls of massy silver shared, with figures prominent and richly wrought, and 2 brass caldrons from Dodona brought. Thus all, rewarded by the hero's hands, their conquering temples bound with purple bands. And now Sergestus, clearing from the rock, brought back his galley shatter'd with the shock. Forlorn she look'd without an aiding oar, and hooted by the vulgar made to shore. As, when a snake, surpris'd upon the road, is crush'd athwart her body by the load of heavy wheels, or with a mortal wound her belly bruis'd and trodden to the ground, in vain with loosen'd curls she crawls along, yet fierce above she brandishes her tongue, glares with her eyes, and bristles with her scales, but, grovelling in the dust, her parts unsound she trails. So, slowly to the port the Centaur tends, but what she wants in oars with sails amends. Yet, for his galley sav'd, the grateful prince is pleas'd th' unhappy chief to recompense. Pholoe, the Cretan slave, rewards his care, beauteous herself, with lovely twins as fair. From thence his way the Trojan hero bent Into the neighb'ring plain, with mountains pent, whose sides were shaded with surrounding wood. Full in the midst of this fair valley stood a native theatre, which, rising slow by just degrees, o'erlook'd the ground below. High on a sylvan throne the leader sate; a num'rous train attend in solemn state. Here those that in the rapid course delight, Desire of honour, and the prize invite. The rival runners without order stand, The Trojans mix'd with the Sicilian band. First Nisus with Euryalus appears, Euryalus a boy of blooming years. With sprightly grace and equal beauty crown'd, Nisus for friendship to the youth renown'd. Diores next, of Priam's royal race; Then Salius join'd with Patron took their place. But Patron in Arcadia had his birth, And Salius his from Acarnanian earth. When two Sicilian youths, the names of those Swift Helymus and lovely Panopes, Both jolly huntsmen, both in forest bred, And owning all Acestes for the head, And sev'ral others of ignobler name, Whom time has not deliver'd o'er to fame. To these the hero thus his thoughts explain'd, In words which general approbation gain'd. One common largess is for all design'd, The vanquish'd and the victor shall be join'd. 2 darts of polish'd steel and Gnosian wood, A silver-studded axe alike bestow'd. The foremost 3 have olive wreaths decreed. The first of these obtains a stately steed, Adorn'd with trappings, and the next in fame The quiver of an Amazonian dame, With feather'd Thracian arrows well supplied. A golden belt shall gird his manly side, Which with a sparkling diamond shall be tied. The third this Grecian helmet shall content, He said. To their appointed base they went. With beating hearts the expected sign receiv'd, And starting all at once, the barrier leave. Spread out as on the winged winds they flew, And seiz'd the distant goal with greedy view. Shot from the crowd, swift Nisus all o'erpass'd, Nor storms nor thunder equal half his haste. The next, but though the next yet far disjoin'd, Came Salius, and Euryalus behind. Then Helymus, who young Diores plied, Step after step, and almost side by side, His shoulders pressing, and in longer space Had won, or left at least a dubious race. Now spent, the goal they almost reach at last, When eager Nisus, hapless in his haste, Slipp'd first, and slipping fell upon the plain, Soak'd with the blood of oxen newly slain. The careless victor had not mark'd his way, But treading where the treacherous puddle lay, His heels flew up, and on the grassy floor He fell, besmear'd with filth and holy gore. Not mindless then, Euryalus, of thee, Nor of the sacred bonds of amity, He strove th' immediate rival's hope to cross, And caught the foot of Salius as he rose. So Salius lay extended on the plain. Euryalus springs out the prize to gain, And leaves the crowd. Applauding peals attend the victor to his goal, Who vanquish'd by his friend. Next Helymus, then Diores came, By 2 misfortunes made the third in fame. But Salius enters, and exclaiming loud For justice, deafens and disturbs the crowd, Urges his cause may in the court be heard, And pleads the prize is wrongfully conferr'd. but favour for Euryalus appears. His blooming beauty, with his tender years, had bribed the judges for the promis'd prize. Besides, Diores fills the court with cries, who vainly reaches at the last reward, if the first palm on Salius be conferr'd. Then thus the prince: "Let no disputes arise; where fortune plac'd it, I award the prize. But fortune's errors give me leave to mend, at least to pity my deserving friend," he said; and from among the spoils he draws, Pond'rous with shaggy mane and golden paws, a lion's hide. To Salius this he gives. Nisus with envy sees the gift, and grieves. "If such rewards to vanquish'd men are due," he said, "and falling is to rise by you, what prize may Nisus from your bounty claim, Who merited first rewards and fame? In falling both an equal fortune tried, Would fortune for my fall so well provide." With this he pointed to his face, and show'd his hand, and all his habit smear'd with blood. Th' indulgent father of the people smil'd, and caus'd to be produc'd an ample shield of wondrous art, by Didymaon wrought, long since from Neptune's bars in triumph brought. This, giv'n to Nisus, he divides the rest, and equal justice in his gifts express'd. The race thus ended, and rewards bestow'd, once more the prince bespeaks th' attentive crowd: "If there be here whose dauntless courage dare In gauntlet fight with limbs and body bare, His opposite sustain in open view, Stand forth the champion, and the games renew. 2 prizes I propose, and thus divide: A bull with gilded horns and fillets tied Shall be the portion of the conqu'ring chief; A sword and helm shall cheer the loser's grief." Then haughty Dares in the lists appears; Stalking he strides, his head erected bears. His nervous arms the weighty gauntlet wield, And loud applauses echo thro' the field. Dares alone in combat us'd to stand, The match of mighty Paris, hand to hand. The same at Hector's funerals undertook Gigantic Butes of th' Amycian stock, And, by the stroke of his resistless hand, Stretch'd the vast bulk upon the yellow sand. Such Dares was, and such he strode along, And drew the wonder of the gazing throng. His brawny back and ample breast he shows, His lifted arms around his head he throws, And deals in whistling air his empty blows. His match is sought, but thro' the trembling band Not one dares answer to the proud demand. Presuming of his force, with sparkling eyes, Already he devours the promis'd prize. He claims the bull with awless insolence, And, having seiz'd his horns, accosts the prince: "If none my matchless valour dares oppose, How long shall Dares wait his dastard foes? Permit me, chief, permit without delay, To lead this uncontested gift away." The crowd assents, and with redoubled cries, For the proud challenger demands the prize. End of Book 5, Part 1.